I'm Ben Ryman, and this is Behaviour Speak. In this conversation, Hazel Lim shares her journey from being a professional interpreter to becoming an autism specialist, highlighting the cultural stigmas surrounding autism in the Chinese community. She discusses her personal experiences with neurodiversity, the challenges faced by family in understanding and accepting autism, and the importance of language in shaping perceptions. Hazel emphasizes the need for collective efforts to change the narrative around autism and empower individuals within the community. Welcome, Hazel.
Hello, hi Ben.
Yeah, great to have you. Before we get started, I always like to acknowledge that I am producing this podcast on the stolen territory of the Kalaman, Clayhu, Samoko, and Comox First Nations, part of the Coast Salish people. Grateful to be here. So Hazel, why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself?
So I am a Malaysian Chinese heritage. I came to live in the UK about 20 years ago, and I have children here. I stay here in this country. I originally worked as a professional interpreter. So I have this background, which then helped me to get insight a lot of Chinese immigrants, different background and why are they coming to this country and what kind of difficulties they face. So there's a lot of intersectional kind of layers that, I've got that insight of. And much later on, I think it's about 12 years ago, my journey into autism started, which then widened my perspective of life, which is amazing. And going into neurodiversity, that is really something that I feel like before anything that I was think of, it was so narrow. I currently work as a autism specialist, but at the same time, I wear a lot of different hats at the same time. ADHD myself, that I have got ADHD and autism diagnosis. And all this diagnosis pursuit was after that I've been working professionally into this field. So that tells me that, and that tells a lot of people, I've been telling people this, they are neurodiversity, autism, ADHD, or whatever that, that we call them. They are actually not as surface as what we used to know. And generally, what we know about these things are just too staying on the too shallow kind of surface. And when come to Chinese community, Chinese culture, we are far behind, like with a lot of other Western country. People, they don't understand because of, there's a lot of barriers that come in the way, like, cultural stigmas and other things. And especially for people that in this country, Chinese people, they have got additional kind of barriers, again, with that intersectional kind of issues that almost like hinder them to fully embrace the reality of neurodiversity. Yeah, so that's me.
Yeah. So what brought you to the UK in the first place?
Study. So I came here to study and I stay here. So when I then moved from London to Wales, I was thinking to come to do the research. So I did the master in autism. The plan was only doing for a year, but then I stayed. Wales is such a nice place, and especially to raise children. The reason that I walked into this journey was because of my son. That when he was little, he present as a very clever, very adorable, cute baby. The only time that when I look back, when I started noticing that maybe he's a bit different, it was only when he started school. So then when I want to talk about about my son with a lot of people, I found that a lot of people, especially Chinese or my family, this topic's always being shunned away. So nobody wants to talk about it. I really wonder why my conversation getting nowhere. Every time when I start the conversation, the answer would be like, oh, he's fine, he will be okay. That's it. So that's it. So that is the started point. Then I'm satisfied with those answers. So I started into my research, and so it takes me where I am today.
And then how did your son there? And
So yes, I when I was doing my research in autism, I started to read a lot of papers and do the research and have all this conversation with people around me. I've got so many interesting conversation with so many people. I feel like at that time I started to feel like I find my tribe. So I started to speak to people with, common interests and really bring a lot of enlightenment to my life. And I remember when in one of the module I choose to do cultural differences. So I start looking to Chinese culture. When I start looking into this area, then I realized, why did my mom not to want to speak to me about this topic? Why did my friend, everyone was like, feeling uncomfortable around me every time when I talk about this? It's not their fault. It's not their problem. It's just that our culture did not embrace this neurodiversity. It's become a taboo. We don't talk about it. And also, not just that, the whole culture is almost like the stigma because we don't talk about it. It's been rarely talked about. It's kind of like building that stigma around autism. So everyone who has difficulties will being hide at home, so that because they are rarely seen, rarely talked about. So only with that obvious kind of stereotype behaviors, they see them as being an autistic person. And as a result, so any kind of different in behavior in the community will get criticized as bad parenting. So a lot of pressure, in our culture that we talk a lot about under the Confucian kind of the value of the community harmony, the family harmony, all these are very important. Overly emphasized, I think. Don't get me wrong. I mean, in Chinese culture, we have a lot of beautiful things. We talks about a lot of nice things, beautiful things, and also, but then because of lack of understanding, because of cultural stigma, so it's a pity. It's a pity that people then tend to kind of establish that kind of avoidance. So after generation, years, and centuries, not talking about it, so we now have misconception built around this topic. Right. Talking back to when I started looking into all this literature kind of research and paper, and I found out in our culture, there are still very lack of research. People are not willing to talk about it. That is the reason why, I can never be able to talk to any of my Chinese friend or my family. So then I get more interested, wanted to look for more information. And it's a shame that a lot of things that I can found is very outdated, very limited. And then I wanted to dig into more because during all this time, while I was doing my research, I was also at that time I was thinking like I'm supporting my son. Now I don't like to use the word support because it's almost like I find myself more superior,
right,
than
sure.
other people. Yeah. So we often see, I think the society almost teaches us that, what is normal behavior to have. Anything like disability or any like autism, anything that you can't perform what the normal people do, then you almost like being low, downgraded to almost like a second class of citizen, so that's ableism. I think it's really bad. So I personally now I think because every single life, they have got their value in it. We are no better than anyone. That everyone has got their strength, their weaknesses. It's normal. So when I was doing my research and at the same time battling through my son's diagnosis and assessment, I feel very disheartened. There's nobody can help me. I don't have even someone that I can speak to. So later on, so that was much later on. So when I was, filled by the knowledge and, my passion, then I set up Chinese Autism Support Group. So that's where I gather Chinese families, parents that living in the UK to sit together just to have that mutual support to one another. It's difficult.
Mm-hmm.
Difficult to just get one person to come and speak to me. So to get them together, it was a nightmare. And also at that time, when I start talking about it, in quite a high profile, I knock onto the Chinese community center. I speak to people everywhere. People are seeing me doing something that is quite disgraceful. within our community, because this is topic is, it's a taboo. Nobody wants to talk about it. If you're talking about it, it's almost like, you're bringing kind of like a shameful topic up to the table. So I think what I feel also, then when I go into my research, then I feel that calling, I feel like there's so much more that need to be done. So I work full time as an autism specialist, but then also then focusing, I've been telling people this is my focus, like, certainly in the cultural side of it and intersectionality, and also, people that has got immigration status, because all this layer, if you don't unpick, you can't really kind of understand their situation and know what they need, and in order to empower this group of people. So then eventually I also set out a non-profit organization called Chinese Autism, because I feel like I myself, one person, is very limited. As much as I wanted to be there for everybody, but I couldn't, and I have got my own difficulties myself. I get overwhelmed easily, and I have got only 24 hours like everybody else. So I set this out, Chinese Autism nonprofit organization, and with the website as a first point of contact to out there to empower people. One simple message that I was trying to give out to all the Chinese people, as well as the English speaking professional or, wider community, is that language is very important. How we use the terminology, how we talk about autism, how we talk about neurodiversity is so important. Anyone come to me, if they started to talk about autism in Chinese, if I say to them, autism is not a disease, autism is not an illness, straight away they will be thinking, what are you talking about? Don't you feel the bizarre as a Westerner yourself? You are way out of the who would still think that autism is an illness or a disease?
Right, right.
But in Chinese culture, we still do.
Do you have a credential with the International Behavior Analysis Organization, the Qualified Applied Behavior Analysis Credentialing Board, the Behavior Analyst Certification Board, or would like a certificate of attendance for another organization? You can earn continuing education units by going to www.behaviorspeak.com, clicking on CEUs, and entering the 3 secret words. The first secret word is sunflower.
We still do, because of the language, because the terminology, the translation that has translated into Chinese is a disease. It's a self-closed disease. So if you heard of a disease, straight away that, put into your mind would be like something that is contagious, even though, I don't want my children to be contracted this disease by just playing with your children. So all the families who unavoidably that has their children being assessed and have that label, that will naturally lead a very isolated life. So then people will choose not to have that label, but then ultimately that means that in UK context, that means that a lot of young people, children, they might not be able to receive the support they're entitled.
Right.
Or would they never be able to know their identity, really fully understand themselves. Yeah. So I think in China, ableism, I talked about ableism just now, that really manifests through the widespread of social discrimination. Maybe when I talk to my other friends, English friends, they say it's the same, some still in some countries or some areas, some community is still the same, because it's almost like a social discrimination against people with disability, including those negative stereotypes, poor accessibility. In UK, we say we are quite good in this area, but in fact, a lot of times it's just doing the conveniences for the policies, but it's still not embedded into everyone's thinking and practices. So people with disability, or I don't like to say people with autism, because I think we are not with something. We are just another person, another human. But autistic people or people with labels, in Chinese, is often seen as a burden, and straight away you are become less valuable member of the society. And that usually contributing to a culture of pity or avoidance. And I personally think that has to be changed. So I am hoping, so I have got a hope. My hope of what I'm doing all this time is to change the terminology of the term of autism in Chinese. And that cannot be just my personal effort. that ultimately has to be a collective effort from all Chinese-speaking countries. So then by doing that, we can do that. That is the main reason that I set up Chinese Autism Organization, so that, not just by my one person manpower. So I started in UK, Chinese Autism, but then this is going to empower everyone, all the Chinese and English professional, worldwide, internationally, so that you recognize the issue that, that lies in the Chinese culture for the neurodiversity, for the neurodivergence people. And then we can collectively have that joint kind of force that to make the change to individuals' life of Chinese people.
So what is sort of, I know China and the Chinese sort of diaspora is massive. I don't know if you can answer this question, but what typically do Chinese families do in Chinese countries when it is present?
Okay. So generally speaking, so I myself is from Malaysia. So I've been brought up in Malaysia. But regardless where we are from, but Chinese is still our heritage. So it's our culture. So my parents, I'm the third generation of Chinese in Malaysia. So my grandparents, they moved from China to Malaysia. So my mom, she was born in Malaysia. Even so, I'm already the third generation, but I am brought up in Chinese culture. So culture is a very fascinating thing, isn't it? So there's a lot of, and also Chinese culture is one of the oldest culture across all the cultures. So we hold on to our values very, with pride, good and bad. Okay. So when I talk about this Chinese culture regarding autism, I think that applies to anyone that Chinese wherever they are, and regardless their education background. Because I remember once I had a professor, Chinese professor from, she's a lecturer from the university. She came to speak to me, with confidential, to say she has got a friend's daughter that are in the suspicions of maybe being autistic. She put so many layers just to avoid, just want to hide the fact that, actually she has the concern for her daughter. So this is, can you tell? Yeah. So we are not able to embrace the differences because our culture has not teach us to do that. Yeah. So because by even addressing it is to bring the disharmony to our family, to our culture. So we are not being empowered to talk about it. So all the families, majority of the families, put it this way. So if someone that noticing their children may be presenting some behavioral difficulties, or because we have very limited understanding about neurodiversity, so what they think of autism is someone really having stereotype of behaviors, and or can't read or can't understand things, can't speak, all these things. So very stereotype. So if that is the situation, they usually secretly get the diagnosis, or maybe not getting a diagnosis if they are from a poorer rural area, they will just hide their children at home. So that is still the case. They are family members that are being hidden away that in the home for their entire life. Yeah, so that is very, very sad. So that is the kind of extreme example. So if one child, I keep saying children. The reason I do that is because I think with neurodiversity, autism, now these things has almost come to a more kind of popular topic that people will talk about these days. So, but they only started recent years. So not 100 years ago in China. I'm talking about in Chinese culture now. So they don't see that in adult. So they still think children, and then because they still think it's an illness, so they still pushing children to go for treatment, go to still seeking for medication, thinking they will outgrown it one day, they will be treated one day. So they haven't come across that adult can be, it's a lifelong thing. It's who we are. If we are having this special brain, amazing fabulous brain, this will stay with us throughout our life. It's just that how we are embracing it and how we are celebrating it. But sadly, so this is how it is not viewed in our culture. So children will definitely be sending to go to lots of intervention, one after another. So a lot of intervention, and parents will be feeling very despair, on their grieving for many years, and
Sure.
receiving blames for their extended families, and also a lot of so by in my current work. So I because I support, okay, so I don't like to use support, but I support, so I work with a lot of families. So this family is a bit different because they have got additional layers as immigrants as well. So, but if we just take that layers off, just talking about Chinese family in general, having autistic children at home, their life is generally very isolated because many of them, they are having lack of understanding of disability rights and how to interact respectfully with individuals with neuro differences. And within our community, Chinese community is not being generally accepted. It's almost like, being, isolated away. So they live very isolated life. Their mental health is very poor, especially parents, especially mother as well, because the woman's status in the family is usually kind not like, so we don't talk about same equal kind of things in terms of when they come at home. Children always have to listen to the parents, and women, you always have to listen to your husband. That is still the case because it's seen as a good value in a good practice in our culture. So to really tackle that, and then with the additional things of autism, all this thing, it's just everything just tangled together. It's very, very difficult.
And so, does it sort of change? First off, what was in your experience initially? So, did you initially have that shame and
So for me, I think I'm fortunate enough that I have not always lived with my family. So I left home to live independently when I was quite young. I think that is for some reason, I think my life, has got a way out itself for me. Have I put it this way? My mom was I was brought up in a single parenthood, and my mom was very busy at just earning the living to raise 4 children. I'm the youngest at home. Um, my family always say, like, I always, get on with my own way to do. I always know what I wanted to do. So I then, it's a strength. Now I looking back, it's a strength because I know what I like and I go for it. And my mom was just too busy to stop me from doing all these things. But in um the in the eyes of my family, maybe back in those days, that I'm just very stubborn. No matter what they say, I wouldn't listen anyway, so they just let me be. Looking back, so when I remember this, when I go through my assessment process, looking back, my secondary school, my primary school, there are so many things when I start unpick all these experiences, because when I was in school, I was being labeled as kind of like naughty kind of girl, like I went to school late, I sleep in the classroom, I do a lot of things that, which is not abiding the rules. So rules has just never applied to me because I need to get my way through with all this system, because if I don't, then I will get myself into trouble. But those rules, they are made for to control people, I think. Now I'm looking it back, because they just want people to. So back in my country, as we talks about good behavior, in a way, like you need to look at your teachers with your eye contact, you need to sit within your sitting area, and you need to pay attention, all these things, take note, all these things. And I couldn't do them. I sleep very late sometimes because I was very into art. I draw till maybe 4 o'clock a.m. in the morning. I have to go to school at 6 o'clock, so I'm naturally very tired. So all I can do is sleep in the classroom. So that get me into trouble with that. Then when doing the exam, I couldn't do well because of not being paying attention in the class. So I do some cheating in my exams. I never get caught because just anyway. So all these things. So my friends like see me as like someone that not doing this to the rules. But I think having me able to be myself, I think that really helps me. Of course, throughout this journey, I lost a lot of friends. There are people that they did not understand me, and I might be offended a lot of people by me talking very bluntly. I didn't even know that was the issue. until, there's a certain period of time you started to think, because there are a lot of things that I don't understand. When I started to understand neurodiversity, I started to understand my brain works differently with other people, and I started to see those weaknesses used to be a weaknesses. Then I started to understand all these things. Then I know, those are not my weaknesses. Those are not my, that's just me. And I just then stop blaming myself for being, like losing out my friends, or, there are a lot of criticism that I used to hold on in my heart for many years. I start to letting them go, because I kind of like knowing myself better as I grow older. And I feel like I become wiser, going into the world of neurodiversity, the journey of neurodiversity. That really helps me to understand human a bit better, understand myself a bit better, and, understand the people around me so much better. I become more wider than used to be so narrow, not just because of the culture and the education that I'm being brought up with. It's just that people around me, around in the society, in the world, and the workplace, the school, there are too much of ableism into it. So it's been telling us how, bad that we have been behaving, and that is not helpful. So go back to your question now about what did you ask again, Ben?
Well, just kind of what your
My
sort of
experiences.
early experiences, but also your kind of early perceptions of
Yeah.
autism and whatnot.
So I remember when I wanted to talk about my son's behavior. So the behavior was very simple. Simple as in like the very first behavior that I noticed that has motivated me to wanted to take some action was a very simple things. And my friend always say like, I was overthinking. That was, he came home, go straight from the door to the kitchen, and from his pocket he took out a pack of Haribo. It's like a soft gummy sweets, and then he bent it into the dustbin. So I stood there and I was speechless for a few seconds, because I was wondering what he was doing. He didn't say anything. He was just walk home, and then as quickly as he could, and then went there straight away. So in the evening, I started to think what he was doing, because when I asked him, he was just saying, no, no sweets. So no sweets is the thing that I've been teaching him at home. So at home from young, I serve him no sweets. I say to him, like, we don't eat sweets until you are 8 years old, because they are bad for teeth. When he was at, there are some rules at home. There are some rules at home, and he abided beautifully, 100%. So good. It's the perfect boy that I can have. So he never break any rules when I have my daughter. So he has been the person that I can account for. He will be telling his sister, you can't do this, you can't do that, because this is not good for you. So he 100%. So then I started to want to, and then after I started to know about autism and look back when he was in the first 5 years of his childhood, then I noticed a lot of other symptoms, which then back then I didn't know. Anyway, so that was my very first kind of things that got me into thinking. So I went to school to speak to the teachers, and then that is how the conversation started. So then school teachers was telling me that, he's doing very well in school, fine, he never get into trouble, always pay attention, very quiet. And when people are playing in the yard, he's always good going to the library reading. So then it brings me, another of my, I was curious, why is he not playing with other children? Why is he going to the library where it was the time where all the children are playing? So then when I have got a very good teacher at that time that, willing to look into this with me, then we noticed then, he is never, if he has a choice, if out of the routine, because everything, if at the routine, cutting, school time, table time, carpet time, he is doing it perfectly. But when the children are letting loose, just like, lunch break time, those time when they are letting loose, they can play with whoever they want, they can play
Sure.
with anything they want. That is the time he will always go to the library to read. He will be, he will be missed if we did not pick that up, if I did not initiate that conversation with the teacher, because in a classroom of 30, in the school of few hundreds, he will be seen as a very good pupil, very obedient, never cause any problem, always do well in the academy, always do what he is told. But then actually he is really struggling. He's struggling to with his peers. He's struggling and very anxious when he was not told what to do. When other children are, constantly doing some behavior that he's unexpected, he didn't know what to cope. So that is where our conversation started with teacher. So then, that eventually go into where I benefit with a lot of conversation from then. At that time, the first terminology came into my life was Asperger's syndrome. At that time, of course, we don't use that anymore. But all these symptoms, I think that really limited what we know about neurodiversity. So I rarely use them anymore unless we have to. And a lot of them are really disempowering people, isn't it? With ASD, with deficit, all this kind of negative kind of and the label. So I generally, I think language is very important. So I usually use very simple language. I don't use like those terminology, like people, firstly, they don't understand. Secondly, they are all the medical terms. All these are applying with the medical model, almost like telling people, this is the problem. We need to fix this. Yeah. So anyway, back to my journey. So this is when the conversation started. So I started to read, I started to find information, I started to want to talk to other people. That's where I told you about, I hardly able to engage a conversation with my friends, the people around me, sharing similar culture. And not just that, a lot of people, they don't seem to really understand what autism, in depth, and nobody are able to give me some very meaningful kind of direction or advice. So I feel like at that time I have to do this myself. I have to do this. And then eventually that led to not getting enough information from online. That led to me going in to do the research and master. And also in Chinese culture, because of the terms that we have turned it so badly and translate so badly. So all the associate kind of wording and terminology are medical model.
Right.
So if someone that is autistic, they will be naturally being termed as a patient because, so
The second secret word is stigma.
or I can say 95% of the Chinese literacy or Chinese literature, you can find it online from China, from a lot of Chinese speaking countries, Taiwan, Hong Kong. This is the standard kind of terminology they would use. But continuing using all this term, we are delaying, our correct understanding about neurodiversity. Yeah. We are nowhere close to understanding the differences of people's brain, by using all these medical terms. So all these fancy terms that we need to get rid of. That's why in the Chinese Autism website, we get rid of all this. So I don't have a lot of, but then I have got a small, very good team of volunteers. So if this platform can attract me for more volunteers, more people to come on board to in this mission, I warmly welcome, because we want to using good information to put it on website to empower people. But again, all this need to be translated into a more simple term and remove all these medical kind of fancy words to continue to empowering people, because we need to be it's a simple thing. We need knowledge to be empowered, know how to find our identity. So my journey up until today, I can say that, it's still not easy, because what I'm doing on today's context, like I have got Chinese people that I work with, that I see them very often, I advocate for them. But at the same time, I give trainings and have a lot of conferences with English professionals, like in health board, social services, or, just anyone. In this busy world, I think not many people, there are a lot of people, but when come to professionals, I think especially people who have the authority to change are not always there to listen. I speaking from the perspective of So in the UK, people that in the authority, they have the power, to distribute funding, for instance. But if they have to measure the outcome by numbers, they will see, Chinese is a minority in this country. So when in terms of distribution of funding, then maybe you are not that significant. But actually, no, I think we have additional kind of barriers where our barriers and difficulties is much higher than a lot of other people when come to be able to embrace neurodiversity and to get the support, if we want to still using the word of support. So I think there should be a cultural shift, not just within culture and Chinese culture, but also anyone that in the world, that because Chinese people now, they are scattered all around the world. They, whether in Canada, in USA, in Argentina, in everywhere, Chinese is the highest population in the world, isn't it? Because they are everywhere, basically. When they are out there, they are immigrants, and their English. Chinese language is a very unique to a lot of other languages, because I don't know how much you know about Chinese language, but our language is formed by character. So it's, to a lot of my friends, they always say our character is almost like a painting individually. We are not. Our language is not formed by alphabets.
Right.
So for any Chinese people to learn English, it's not that easy, especially if they didn't learn Chinese from young. So it's very, very difficult. So I learned English all my life. My English is still not very good. So I mean, like, there is differences when come to Chinese and English. There are a lot of huge difference compared to for Spanish or for Dutch people to learn English, creating big barrier to a lot of Chinese people. And also a lot of immigrants, when they come to another country, they have their livelihood, they spend a lot of time working, and because of language barrier, they might not be able to have enough time as they wish to learn English. So that create a lot of barriers for them to navigate the system in that new country. And then to understand neurodiversity, coming out from their cultural kind of stigma, it's almost like impossible if they don't get external help.
So tell me about some of the work you're doing at Chinese Autism UK.
Right. And Chinese autism. So if you go to our website, you will see, so we are building it, okay, as much as we can, slowly, but effectively. The platform is there to empower everybody. So whether you speak English or you speak Chinese, so for you to understand a little bit more of our cultural stigma, so that why is certain people behaving in certain way. They sometimes are reluctant to accept new ideas. It's not just that they are not open-minded themselves, because maybe they are just being restricted by our cultural norm and the friend circles that we are in. For Chinese people, as much as they want to help their children, I think a lot of time I've been keep telling them that sometimes we have to start with ourselves. So we have to start learning ourselves rather than keep sending your children to therapies or intervention. I think that is what the empowerment I try to give to a lot of Chinese parents and carers. And so so what we do there is to really tackle what are the most pressing issues. So at the moment, I am working on a project wanted to create accessibility for people that find it hard to explain themselves, whether it's because of the language barrier or whether it's because of the cultural stigma. They don't feel like, they're being empowered to tell people like, their children are autistic. So I'm working on accessibility. So because all these people, we don't want the children, we don't want these individuals to being hide at home all the time. We want them to be able to be in the community, to do the things they like. They go to the restaurant, they can enjoy, all these public places. They should be able to enjoy all these places, but not to being stopped by using them just because they feel like, they will be criticizing or discriminating or just, so increasing accessibility is what I am currently focusing on. So to do that, I am doing a lot of different things like, speaking to businesses and working with, collaborating with other partners. So we are about to launch actually. So maybe by the time people see this, it's already been launched. That there's a initiative that during COVID is called Sunflower Hidden Disability Scheme. I don't know if you heard about that,
I
Ben.
haven't. No.
Yeah, so that is a lanyard. So actually, if I can show you,
Please.
I just received this yesterday, Ben. So we work with them. So we have been planned this for a year. So we are launching it in March. So this lanyard. So basically, this is internationalized. So we do it a lot with airport because this is where it's one place that is very overwhelming and you don't go there
Absolutely.
often. So for
Sure.
individuals to go there, will often find it very overwhelming. Sunflower Scheme has been very successfully working with a lot of airlines and airports. And recently with Lego, how amazing is that? Lego, if you start looking at it, they have got a figure that will be wearing sunflower lanyard. That is to tell
Okay,
you
cool.
this person has got hidden disability. They might not be able to tell you. They might have some difficulty. So his behavior might present in a way that you don't understand just because he is not able to tell you. So I have got this printed, if you can see here. So there is
Yeah.
a logo is being printed here.
Lovely.
Yeah, and here it says like angel like children. So this is So
So,
if you
so in
see
the airport, there's a Lego figure that has the lanyard on, so people know when they see that, or no?
Lego now, if you go to Lego straight away now, if you go to website, you will see a figure there.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay. Neat,
so
neat,
they
neat,
are
neat, neat. On the
so
website.
this is the
Wow.
awareness that we are doing it
Oh,
collectively, and
amazing.
I'm so glad that they are working collaboratively with us. So
Wow.
so I'm
So
going to
cool.
introduce. Yeah, it's really because I'm going to introduce this to the Chinese community,
Mm.
starting with UK and then eventually to all Chinese speaking countries. So I'm thinking of people, they are finding it hard to explain themselves. So
Of course.
I will encourage them to wear this, and then while Sunflower is promoting their scheme, I am introducing this to the Chinese community. So hopefully everyone who see that, they will be understanding, a bit more understanding, because I still get a lot of stories telling to me, like from a lot of families, when they take their children, because a lot of children, they like to go on to public transport, a lot of children, they just like the idea of
Of
buses. I
course.
don't know if you
Yeah.
come across, autistic children, they love it.
Yep.
And by taking them into public places, you will face a lot of judgment, isn't it? And to some extent, it's discrimination. People, they don't understand why children are screaming and stomping
Mm.
their feet because they get really excited. They need to regulate kind of things. But hopefully, by wearing this, parents doesn't have to keep apologizing themselves.
Explaining.
And also people still go to restaurant, get discriminated, sometimes not by the restaurant owner, but by the customer. They just, we still get that, even in the UK all the time. So this is one scheme that I'm doing, like increasing accessibility, and also like not so if by wearing this, but people don't understand it, it's useless. So I am also working on having a lot of public places, including restaurants and leisure center, to have that kind of training to understand what is Sunflower Disability Scheme is about. Apart from that, I have got like campaign lining out. So I have started to film some documentary, so to capture some stories
Wow.
of a Chinese family living with autism. So that Chinese people, they they don't feel so isolated. Of course, it's not easy to have families to come on board to do this because of the cultural stigma, because, they will be feared to get discriminated. But I do have some families, after been working with some years, they have been empowered and they think it's important cause to do. So I've been start filming to do some documentary, and when time is ready, the campaign will start going across UK and hopefully internationally, so that to have that awareness increase, to people will start, by seeing it more, talking a bit more, to just normalizing it. It's not a taboo. It's not because we don't talk about it. It's not as this is only like, only few people. Actually, neurodiversity, we all have different brain. There is no one same kind of brain, even it's a twin. So actually, neurodiversity is not just talking about small group of people. It's not.
Everybody.
It's everybody. Absolutely, it's everybody. Yeah, it's that kind of the culture have to shift, by understanding of disability, autism, or neurodiversity. Certainly in Chinese culture, we certainly need to talk a bit more on that. Yeah.
So that's amazing. So with there being so much stigma and shame and sort of hiding and all these sorts of things, how are these Chinese families finding you and connecting with you?
Right. So there has been a journey, Ben. I have to say there has been a journey, but I have been always being very grateful with my ADHD. And my colleague has always said this as well, because when I wanted to do something and when I'm really focused and I can do, my efficiency is, way better than a lot of people. So I've been always being comment in this way, like, the things that I can achieve in one day, if I'm really hyper focused, maybe that will take someone a month to do it. Can you imagine? So within these 10 years, I feel like I have achieved a lot, to be honest, because of my ADHD. I have to say, when I think this is something that I'm really passionate about doing this, even though I get discouraged all the time as well, I get disempowering all the time too, and I have got my own difficulties. But every time, I think when I come back out, I bounce back, that give me, fuel me to keep on doing and even stronger. I think my source of power definitely come from the people that I work with, especially the children. So a lot of children that I work with, I see them very often. When we are together, it's that pure energy that always, charge me, I always feel recharged. So every now and then I will do a day just with the children, the parents are not allowed and we just there, having that to do whatever we want. We are not being stopped to do, like get ourselves dirty or get ourselves, stop us from coloring sun into black color, like kind of thing. So, and I get recharged every time when I'm with them. And also when there are some parents telling me how much they feel they empowered by, certain things that we do together, by small changes. I think that is so important because I don't expect when the time that I die, that the whole thing is, it's already been shifted. But when during my lifetime, if I was able to change maybe 10 or 100 or maybe 1,000 people's life, that is enough because one life is one life. All individualized, they have got value in it. They are all important. So I think, sorry, I forgot your question again.
I think you've answered it. And I think you've answered it well. How can folks find you and support the work you're doing? The last secret word is community.
Yeah, so I think okay, there are many, many different ways. So on my website, on the Chinese Autism website, there is a newsletter that you can sign out to. When I say sign out to our newsletter, please do that. Do not be put off by, thinking of, jet newsletter, like all other newsletter, because
Right.
I hated it myself.
Yes.
We don't send out monthly newsletter. We never send out. We only send out when there are important things to announce or important things for people that can take part with. That's why our plan has not ruled out after 10 years. We don't have that, but we work as what is needed, then we launch it. So we always tell people like, now we are launching this campaign, you can help us by spreading the words or help us by donating or, all this kind of thing. Funding is always forever good. We like sponsorship because maybe you don't feel like we are far away. You are not Chinese culture, but by company, especially, statutory, partnership, collaboration, by funding coming in that help us to pay the volunteers to help, pay for simply the website development, all these things this is so important. So there are various ways of supporting us, collaborating with us, funding source coming into our way, sign up to our newsletter, or, by just volunteering with us with your time. I think that's very, very good. Yeah.
Really cool. Really cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. Have we covered everything? Ben?
I think so, yeah. Thanks,
Oh, there's
Hazel.
so much more. I think when I finish, I'll think that, oh, there's so much more that I haven't said. But anyway, when we have next campaign, I'll come to your podcast again. We can talk about it again.
We'll do a part two. I'm loving the work you're doing. I'm planning to go to your website just to learn some more and sign up
Thank
for the
you, Ben.
newsletter and learn more
Do
about
sign up
culture.
with lovely. Please sign up to the newsletter and always share. So if you're definitely on social media, please share our social media.
I
have got some brilliant videographer doing work with us, just sometimes doing fun things, sometimes doing serious stuff, but we want engagement, because with engagement then we can reach out to more people.
Yeah, no, I've seen some of the videos. They're great, and we'll share it all in the show notes so folks can find the links. And when the episode comes out, we'll make sure everyone has all the ways to find you and the great work you're doing, Hazel. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Ben. Thank you for having me. And I think what you are doing is great too. It's amazing. Yeah, and thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks, Hazel. If you enjoyed this interview, I encourage you to check out these episodes of the Behaviour Speak podcast. Episode 45, Autistic Advocacy with Tiffany Hammond. Episode 174, Autistic in Black with Kayla Allen Omeza. And episode 189, Exploring Intersectionality and Autism Advocacy with Dr. Marinike Giwa Onaiwu. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider leaving a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And please follow us on Instagram @BehaviorSpeak.